Chapter 244. Haha, the Wang clan has really stepped forward. In the royal palace, Yang Zhao's hands were trembling in excitement as he read the news he had just received. This time, Xianxia Jianxiang will really be promoted to the position of Minister of War. Little sister, we will no longer be helpless in the royal palace. Xianxia Jianxiang was the talk of the royal court, and the one who would benefit in the end was also Xianxia Jianxiang. However, there was one person who was even more excited than Xianxia Jianxiang, and that person was Yang Zhao. As long as Xianxia Jianxiang enters the royal court, Yang Zhao, will be able to rise to the top and become a high official. Yang Zhao clenched the letter in his hands so tightly that the veins on the back of his fists were bulging. As the saying went, a call to the skies, the people will respond, and Yang Zhao was currently in a state where no one would respond. He wanted a high position and a generous salary, but Yang Zhao knew that his qualifications were too shallow. Every single one of those bigwigs in the royal court had probably investigated him thoroughly. Only by helping Xianxia Jianxiang to the throne would he truly be able to rise to the top. Cousin, it seems like that little brother of yours has already stepped in to help us. At least it wasn't in vain that we helped him back then. A pleasant voice, reminiscent of a pearl falling on a jade plate, sounded from behind him. It was Consort Taizhen's voice. Hee, isn't that right? Hearing Consort Taizhen's words, Yang Zhao couldn't help but chuckle. Back then, when I was in dire straits, everyone in the gambling den mocked me. Yet, he gave me 1,000 gold taels without even asking a single question. For him to possess such boldness and means at such a young age, his future is bound to be limitless. Later on, when I learned that he was Duke Jiu's grandson, I was even more certain of this. Little sister, you should be able to feel this more vividly than me. Seated on the golden couch, Consort Taizhen couldn't help but chuckle upon hearing those words. Wang Chang's 3 poems had established her reputation as the #1 beauty in the palace. Even this reputation had slowly spread out of the palace along with the 3 poems. Consort Taizhen naturally knew this better than anyone else. Although Consort Taizhen was quite confident in her beauty, sometimes, beauty wasn't enough to make her the most beautiful woman in the world. Cousin is right, but I haven't seen him yet. Consort Taizhen chuckled, and her tone became much gentler. Consort Taizhen had special feelings for this young man from the Wang clan, who had expressed his admiration for her in the poem, caused a huge uproar in the court, and was even imprisoned in the imperial prison. It wasn't love, but she did have a good impression of him. It was completely different from how she looked at other youths. This fellow is currently in the training camp. If little sister wants to see him, there will be plenty of opportunities. Yang Zhao recalled the few times he had met Wang Chong, and his heart was filled with emotions. It's a pity that the Wang clan is too powerful. Otherwise, I would really want to pull him over. However, it's good that he's around. With the strength of the Wang clan and the King of Song, as well as Xianxia Jianxiang's arrival, little sister, you won't be alone in the palace anymore. Yang Zhao said happily. Consort Taizhen nodded and nodded in agreement. I'm a step too late. Yao Guangyi slammed his fists onto the table with a livid expression. He had been trying his best to rope in Yang Zhao and Consort Taizhen. Xianxia Jianxiang was one of the opportunities he had been trying his best to win over. But he didn't expect the Wang clan to beat him to it. Xianxia Jianxiang was an outsider, and a ferocious dragon crossing the river posed a threat to all of the hegemons in the river. This was also the reason why no one stood up for him despite the long dispute over Xianxia Jianxiang. Everyone had chosen to remain silent on this matter. The Wang clan had been silent for a long time, so Yao Guangyi had always thought that they were against it. They were afraid that Xianxia Jianxiang would come to the capital. But he didn't expect Wang Zhen to stand up so decisively. I've been fooled by them. Veins were popping on Yao Guangyi's forehead, and his complexion was awful. How could he not understand that he had been hoodwinked by the Wang clan? If the Wang clan had openly supported Xianxia Jianxiang from the start, everyone in the capital would have surely opposed them. But now, not only did no one criticize them, Xianxia Jianxiang even owed him a huge favor. He was just a step too slow, and he had lost this opportunity forever. Xianxia Jianxiang would remember the first one who supported him, but he wouldn't care too much about the second or third. Such decisiveness definitely isn't Wang Zhen's style. It must be that lad again. Killing intent surged in Yao Guangyi's eyes. I was still a step too slow. Yao Guangyi wasn't the only one sighing. In a residence in the center of the capital, a slender figure sighed as he slowly put down the letter in his hands. Wang Chong was oblivious to the changes in the royal court. At this moment, Wang Chong's attention was completely focused on killing the Goguryeo warriors. Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka worked together to hunt down these targets. The death of every true martial realm Goguryeo warrior would provide Wang Chong with a large amount of origin energy. In a short period of time, Wang Chong had killed a large number of true martial realm experts, and his strength had risen to a whole new level. His strength, speed, and dexterity had all increased significantly, and he wasn't too far off from reaching origin energy tier 9. Unknowingly, another 3 to 4 days passed. Deep in the night, the winds howled, and the surroundings were sparsely populated. At the border of the capital, where few people could be seen, a figure dressed in a robe walked slowly. Judging from his appearance, he was dressed like someone from the Central Plains. However, his walking posture was a little awkward, and one could tell that he was a little unnatural. Boom! Just as that person walked to a lush maple tree by the side of the road, boom! A cold gleam flashed, and as though a bolt of lightning, a sword gleam struck the top of that person's head. At the same time, close to the ground, a pitch-black silhouette of a sword pierced toward the back of that person's waist as though a venomous snake. The two figures moved in tandem with one another, and they seemed to have a tacit understanding of one another. Boom! In the instant that he was ambushed, the person didn't panic. Instead, he pulled out his sword with both hands. At the same time that he drew the sword, a ring of light shot out, and a majestic torrent of energy swept out mightily, covering the heavens and the earth. Boom boom boom. Stellar energy clashed with a sword, but the only sound it produced was the clash of swords against swords. In fact, one could even vaguely hear sparks flying in the air. It was as if the surging torrent was not formless and formless stellar energy, but a saber-shaped sword. Halo of sharpness. Upon mastering this halo, one's stellar energy would become as sharp as swords. This Goguryeo warrior was executing this halo of sharpness, and it was also a variant halo of the true martial realm. Under the collision of the halo and the 3 consecutive slashes, Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka were forced to retreat. Haha, I wasn't wrong. You really took the bait. That person didn't pursue them. Instead, he pointed a saber at Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka and laughed heartily, as though his scheme had succeeded. Gongzi, it's a trap. Mayasame Ayaka's eyes narrowed upon hearing the other party's words. She immediately sensed that something was amiss. Ah, not bad. It's indeed a trap. But it's a pity that it's too late. Come out. That person exerted strength at his waist, and with a chila sound, his clothes were torn apart, revealing a Goguryeo warrior's attire. At the same time, he waved his hands grandly. Walala, 3 figures immediately rushed out from the forest and surrounded Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka. These 3 people were all experienced true martial realm experts, and each of them carried a powerful aura. Even one of them was enough to make Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka worry for a long time. Now that the 4 of them had appeared together, Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka were immediately placed in a disadvantageous position. I'm just the bait, and they are the real attack. Since you can't even defeat me, you won't be a match for them. Hee, no matter what you do now, the only thing awaiting you is death. That person laughed heartily as a sinister glint flashed in his eyes. As the experts of the second base, they reacted much faster than the others. The sudden disappearance of a true martial realm expert wasn't a small matter. Almost immediately, they realized the severity of the matter. Even though they couldn't confirm the truth, they still quickly came up with a plan. The 4 of them formed a group, with 1 in the open and 3 in the shadows. The one in the open was the bait. This way, they could probe the other party's strength, and at the same time, they could keep an eye on one another to prevent any problems from arising. Just that, the man didn't expect them to be so lucky. It had only been a few days, and they had already encountered a bait. To dare to play tricks before us, you're just asking for it. Once we capture you, I'll see for myself what your background is and who's behind you all. The man laughed heartily as he stared at Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka as though they were already corpses. Gongzi, what do we do now? Cold sweat seeped out of Mayasame Ayaka's eyes. Regardless of whether it was in terms of strength or numbers, these people had the upper hand. With their strength alone, it was impossible for them to defeat so many people. Don't worry, there's no need to worry. Wang Chong replied with a relaxed expression. Go, capture them all. If any problems arise, it's fine even if we kill them. He could only hear the voices of the two people in his ears. Panglong. As though announcing Wang Chong's death, the man waved his hand, and 3 true martial realm experts of the Goguryeo Empire, along with him, gathered 3 powerful stellar energy torrents. Before these stellar energy torrents, even Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka's origin energy paled in comparison. Without any hesitation, the moment the 4 of them drew their sabers, Wang Chong let out a deafening howl. Go! This howl wasn't directed at Mayasame Ayaka, but someone in the distance. Panglong. Without any hesitation, Wang Chong immediately released his Bane of the Battlefield halo. Chapter 245. The Bane of the Battlefield. Wang Chong was getting more and more familiar with the usage of this halo, and he was getting better and better at grasping the timing of its execution. Before the 4 Goguryons could react, their auras suddenly froze, as though they had been bound by a layer of iron, and their fighting prowess fell by a notch. At this moment, 800 meters behind them, a figure suddenly moved. Boom! A ferocious gale burst forth like a bolt of lightning, splitting the world and splitting the world apart. Hong Long, a silhouette flashed in midair, and a thick arrow pierced through the air, piercing through the chest of a Goguryeo. The immense force of the arrow pushed him more than a dozen zhang away, pinning him firmly to the ground. Not only so, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th arrows also pierced through the bodies of the other 2 true martial realm Goguryeo experts, sending them flying. Even the powerful torrent of stellar energy of true martial realm experts couldn't withstand it for even a second. With just a single touch, the stellar energy shattered. Putting aside Mayasame Ayaka, even Wang Chong was shocked speechless. He knew that the King of Song had sent an expert to deal with him, but this was the first time he realized that the other party's archery had reached such a formidable level. With 4 people and 4 arrows, Wang Chong didn't even have to lift a finger. Gongzi, that person is powerful. Mayasame Ayaka muttered with deep fear in her eyes. She had come into contact with that reticent master archer several times, but she didn't know that he was actually so fearsome. That speed and strength left her goosebumps all over, and her hair stood on end. Too fast. It was really too fast. It was so fast that there was no time to dodge at all. The moment the arrow sounded, it would be the sound of death. Mayasame Ayaka was also a speed-type assassin, but that archery was created for the sake of death. Even she wouldn't be able to dodge it. Being aimed at meant death. Don't worry. Seeing how Mayasame Ayaka was behaving like a mouse before a cat, Wang Chong patted her shoulder and chuckled. Mayasame Ayaka was an assassin, so it was only natural for her to react to such an expert. However, Wang Chong was different. He's an expert on our side. With such a powerful expert here, what are you worried about? If there's anything to worry about, it's the enemy who needs to worry. This was the first time that Wang Chong had used the power of the sharpshooter. Wang Chong was very satisfied with the expert that the King of Song had sent to him. This expert sent by the King of Song has been with me for a long time, but I've never used him. He must have been holding back his anger, so this time, he deliberately showed off his archery skills in front of me. Wang Chong laughed in his heart and did not mind. That person had a very good grasp of the situation. All 4 of them were heavily injured and on the verge of death, which made it convenient for him to use the little yin-yang art. The saber and sword entered Xiao Chen's body, piercing deep into his heart. A vast essence current surged into his body like the roar of a flood dragon. The nature of the energy harnessed within a true martial realm expert was much higher. Taking in this surge of origin energy, Wang Chong felt his blood boiling, and he felt as though he was going to roar out loud. Long. Wang Chong had already absorbed a huge amount of origin energy over the past few days, and now that he had absorbed the origin energy of the Gogrian expert, the origin energy in his body flowed at a speed that was several times faster than before. At the same time, the little yin-yang art in his body jolted, and it was at this moment that it broke through the first and second realms, forming an even greater cycle. Gongzi is about to reach origin energy tier 9. Mayasame Ayaka's eyelids twitched as she stared at Wang Chong's back. She was extremely sensitive to the changes in Wang Chong's aura. The aura emanating from Wang Chong's body was bubbling, as though a boiling volcano. Furthermore, it was getting denser and denser with each passing step. This was a sign that he was about to release his origin energy and form the embryonic form of stellar energy. It hasn't been too long since Gongzi reached origin energy tier 8, and yet, he's already on the verge of reaching origin energy tier 9. This is inconceivable. Mayasame Ayaka's eyebrows twitched. She wasn't someone who lacked knowledge and experience. However, what was happening to Wang Chong was something that she had never seen or heard of before. What Wang Chong was doing had already surpassed the limits of her understanding. Just a little more. After dealing with the first Gogrian expert, Wang Chong soon walked up to the second one. He could already feel that there was an invisible barrier in front of him, and he would soon break through this barrier. The little yin-yang sword pierced into the body of the second Gogrian expert, and Hong Long. As if reaching some sort of trigger, as the surge of origin energy gushed into Wang Chong's body, his body seemed to have turned into an invisible furnace. When the pressure reached its limit, it suddenly burst forth. Boom boom boom. Wang Chong's Laoxin acupoint, Yongquan acupoint, Jianjing acupoint, Mingmen acupoint, Fengqi acupoint. A total of 16 Xianmen acupoints were opened one after another. As soon as these 16 acupoints were opened, a blood-red mist immediately gushed out, shrouding Wang Chong within it. In that instant, Wang Chong felt as if his body weight had been reduced significantly, and he had become much lighter than before. His speed, strength, and dexterity seemed to have been reborn in an instant, increasing by twofold in an instant. The current Wang Chong was at least twofold stronger than before. External release of inner energy. I've really reached the level of external projection. Sensing the changes in his body, Wang Chong felt the 108,000 pores on his body opening up in delight. Raising one's origin energy from tier 8 to tier 9 was a qualitative change. Upon reaching this realm, one's flesh, blood, bones, and meridians would undergo a massive growth. This was the first qualitative change in a martial artist's body, and it was known as minor qualitative change. During this process, one's strength would rise by twofold to twofold. To a martial artist, this minor qualitative change was an extremely important opportunity. In his previous life, Wang Chong had experienced this surge in strength, but this was the first time he was experiencing it. Furthermore, the growth was even greater than in his previous life. Upon reaching origin energy tier 9, one could already be considered as an origin energy expert. Among ordinary martial artists, one could be considered as one of the top existences. Wang Chong closed his eyes. A moment later, he opened them once more, and a brilliant radiance shot out from them. At this moment, Wang Chong raised his palm, and before Mayasame Ayaka's astonished gaze, a snow-white light burst forth and struck a tree 100 meters away. Hong Long, the tree trunk exploded, and the leaves scattered. Amidst a cloud of dust and wood shavings, the 10-meter-tall tree fell to the ground. This is... Looking at the fallen tree, a thought flashed across Mayasame Ayaka's mind. She vaguely recalled something, but she couldn't believe it. 100 steps divine fist. 800 meters away, that mysterious man, who was like a towering mountain hidden in the darkness, slowly put down his bow and arrow. As he gazed at Wang Chong's back, a hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. To be able to exert origin energy with a single punch and strike a distance of 100 steps away, this was something only the 100 steps divine fist was capable of. Even though it couldn't be compared to a true martial realm secret art, It was definitely a legendary secret art in the origin energy realm. Even the master archer had only heard of it. He had never seen anyone cultivate it before. Those who knew this secret art were as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. For Wang Chong to be able to execute a legendary secret art like the 100 Steps Divine Fist, despite having just reached Origin Energy Tier 9 just a moment ago, it was truly shocking. Where did this child learn so many secret arts at such a young age? In the darkness, the master archer narrowed his eyes. For the first time, he was curious about the young man whom the King of Song had chosen. At least I'm not rusty with it. From afar, Wang Chong stared at his masterpiece and slowly retracted his fist. Nodding his head in satisfaction, he was satisfied with the effect of the punch. The 100 Steps Divine Fist was a legendary secret art, and only a handful of people knew of it. Furthermore, most of them valued it highly, so there were even fewer people who knew it. However, to Wang Chong, this legendary secret art meant nothing at all. After all, it just so happened that he knew this secret art. The 100 Steps Divine Fist sounded mysterious, but in truth, it was just a unique technique to utilize one's origin energy after one had reached Origin Energy Tier 9. The process of gathering one's origin energy was extremely complicated, and it required a lot of skill. Only when one's origin energy was gathered and compressed to a certain level could one release it, and at that point, one would be able to unleash immense destructive power. This was a technique that didn't increase one's cultivation. Thus, it wasn't too difficult for one to grasp the technique. The only problem was that this technique was extremely taxing on one's origin energy. Even an origin energy pinnacle expert would only be able to execute more than a few of the 100 Steps Divine Fist. Thus, unless it was absolutely necessary, one wouldn't use it easily. Practice makes perfect. I'll have to practice this technique more in the future. Wang Chong said to himself as he analyzed the usage of the 100 Pacer God arrow. This secret art allowed one to glide over a long distance, and 100 steps was still relatively easy for one to dodge. Thus, it wasn't that easy to hone one's technique. However, the might of the 100 Steps Divine Fist was truly astounding. Having just achieved a breakthrough to Origin Energy Tier 9, Wang Chong's body was still a little weak. This was a sign that his origin energy was lacking. Following which, without any hesitation, Wang Chong killed the remaining 2 true martial realm Gogrian warriors. With the nourishment of their origin energy, Wang Chong's strength soared, and his cultivation immediately stabilized. Let's go! After finding 4 superior Gogrian ginsengs from the corpses of the 4, Wang Chong gestured for his men to leave. The men monitoring the Gogrian second base sent over a signal that the Gogurians had made a move. The expert sent by the King of Song was simply too powerful. This was also the reason why Wang Chong didn't use him easily. Shwa shwa shwa. In just a short moment, Wang Chong and the others swiftly left. Even the battlefield was cleaned up. All traces of the battle were swept clean. Even the tree that Wang Chong had broken was moved away. Chapter 246. Buns, freshly made buns. Fresh and delicious, I guarantee that you'll be satisfied. Early in the morning, the capital's Jade Dragon Street was filled with people walking to and fro. Crowds of people walked in and out of restaurants, tea shops, and bun stalls. On the east side of Jade Dragon Street, amidst the steam from the buns, the signboard of a restaurant could be vaguely seen. Royal Jade Restaurant. The 3 words were painted in gold on a black background, and it looked rather elegant. The signboard had been changed this morning, and the owner of the restaurant had changed along with the signboard. But other than the owner of the restaurant, the waiters and chefs had all remained the same. Thus, most people were unaware that the owner of the restaurant had changed. Even if some people noticed the change in the signboard, they didn't think too much of it. And at this very moment, Wang Chong was in this very same Royal Jade Restaurant. In the best private room on the 2nd floor of the Royal Jade Restaurant, several burly men from the Zhuang clan and Qi clan were seated on the floor, wolfing down their food. There were already dozens of steamers on the floor, but there were even more steamers stacked on top of each other on the table. The cavalry of the Zhuang clan and the steel guards of the Qi clan were famous, but this was the first time anyone had witnessed their frightening appetite. It's about time. Leaning against the railing, Wang Chong slowly ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. It had been a few days since the last operation, and Wang Chong hadn't done anything in the past few days. All he did was cultivate in this very royal jade restaurant. Dong dong dong. A series of knocks sounded from outside. Come in. Wang Chong said calmly without turning his head. The door to the private room was pushed open, and the black-robed Mayasame Ayaka walked in with a steamer of steaming buns. Gongzi. Mayasame Ayaka knelt down and placed the steamer in front of Wang Chong. Then she took out a pair of chopsticks and carefully wiped them clean before handing them over. How is it? Wang Chong took the black jade chopsticks and placed a soup bun into his mouth. The soup dumplings were very soft and very thin. With a light bite, a thick broth seeped into the mouth. It was fresh and fragrant, overflowing from the lips and teeth. After swallowing it from the mouth to the stomach, there was a comfortable feeling. Not bad. Wang Chong nodded in satisfaction. After eating in so many restaurants and tea houses, Wang Chong still felt that the soup dumplings here were the best. There was an important reason why Wang Chong had chosen this restaurant out of all the restaurants in the capital. As for the other reason, this was also because Wang Chong really needed a restaurant of his own. It was too ostentatious and inconvenient to visit other people's restaurants and shops in the capital. As time passed, it would inevitably attract the attention of others. If he had his own restaurant, it would be very convenient for him to eat or cultivate. At the very least, it would be very convenient in terms of deceiving others. This was similar to how the Yao clan bought the vast crane pavilion. The latter had always left a deep impression on Wang Chong. Sometimes, buying a restaurant of one's own couldn't be measured by money alone. Gongzi, our actions have already caught the attention of the Gogurians. At this moment, not only the first base of the Gogurians, but even the second and third bases are also on high alert. It seems like the Gogurians are starting to get suspicious of us. Kneeling on the floor, Mayasame Ayaka reported respectfully. Even when she had no choice but to appear beside Wang Chong, she made sure to make use of the lighting in the room, barriers, screens, and railings to conceal herself so as to not draw the attention of others. This was almost an instinct of an assassin. The Gogurians aren't lacking in experts. At the very least, that King Sojurim isn't someone easy to deal with. After killing so many people, even if others don't suspect us, he will. Wang Chong said impassively as he picked up another soup dumpling and placed it into his mouth. His expression was calm and relaxed, as though everything was going according to his plan. However, won't there be a problem with this? King Sojurim isn't a benevolent person. He even dared to assault the 3 great training camps. If we were to attract his attention, it might be disadvantageous to us. Mayasame Ayaka said worriedly with a frown. In the territory of the Tang dynasty, King Sojurim was a legend. His schemes were meticulous, and he was vicious and daring. Yet no one knew what he looked like. This meant that even if he were to pass by you, you wouldn't be able to tell what he looked like. You wouldn't even know when he killed you. Don't make him sound so terrifying. In the end, he's just a human. It's just that we haven't seen what he looks like before, that's why we're so suspicious of him. Wang Chong swallowed the soup dumpling and waved his hands nonchalantly. Mystery came from the unknown, and the same went for fear. Wang Chong knew that King Sojurim was well versed in this matter. However, this also showed that he was fearful of him. Just like how assassins couldn't be seen in public, King Sojurim was the same as well. If they knew what King Sojurim looked like, they wouldn't be so fearful of him. Furthermore, have you forgotten about the warriors he brought over from Goguryeo? He has spent so much time and effort on them, and he must be up to something. At this moment, he doesn't have the time to bother with us pawns. Wang Chong paused for a moment before continuing. Besides, this might actually be a good thing. We might be able to alarm him and force him to hurry up. The reason why Wang Chong didn't make a move for the past few days was so that the Goguryans wouldn't be able to figure out his movements. This way, they wouldn't be able to fathom his movements and feel uneasy. As long as they felt uneasy, they would surely find a way to hasten their movements. As the saying went, mistakes are made in the midst of a rush. Once one's movements were rushed, it would be easy for one to leave behind a flaw. Mayasame Ayaka frowned and fell into deep thought. She seemed to be contemplating the meaning behind Wang Chong's words. Wang Chong chuckled and ignored her. Picking up a soup bun with his chopsticks, he stuffed it into his mouth. He didn't feel anything after cultivating for an entire night. But now that he was done cultivating, he felt a surge of hunger in his stomach. While eating the soup bun, Wang Chong continued his cultivation of the Art of Life Massacre. In the past 3 days, Wang Chong didn't do anything else but study the Art of Life Massacre. At the start, this secret art was as thin as a spider's thread. When Wang Chong left the mountain, he had only cultivated it to the thickness of a finger. But now, thanks to the abundant origin energy he had absorbed, Wang Chong's sword chi of life massacre had grown to the width of 4 fingers. His movements were majestic, reminiscent of a rainbow. Furthermore, thanks to his origin energy tier 9 ability to expel his inner chi, Wang Chong was able to execute sword chi of life massacre without using a sword, and its might wouldn't be reduced in the slightest. I can be considered a swordsman now, Wang Chong thought as he took a bite of the soup bun. In his previous life, Wang Chong used a spear, and this was the first time he was becoming a swordsman. Even though he was only a basic swordsman, he was already a swordsman. Furthermore, he had stepped onto a completely different path from his previous life. Elder Su swordsmanship is known as the #1 in the world. Even though it's only the first layer of sword chi, it's already sufficient to break through the stellar energy of a true martial realm expert. However, this isn't sufficient. The first layer of Art of Life Massacre has a total of 9 revolutions, and the expansion and contraction of sword chi form 1 revolution. Only after reaching the 9th revolution can it be considered as the true sword chi of life massacre. I haven't even reached the 1st revolution yet, so I have to continue working hard. Tilting his head upward, Wang Chong subconsciously knocked on the table with his left hand as thoughts flashed through his mind. The Art of Life Massacre's sword chi started off as thin as a gossamer. As one's strength grew, the sword chi would continuously grow thicker and its power would also increase. When it reached the point of withering, it would begin to shrink, compressing the sword chi. When the sword chi turned from thick to thin, becoming the size of a spider's web again, it would be called the 1st revolution. After that, it would be the 2nd revolution, the 3rd revolution. The power of the sword chi was directly proportional to the number of revolutions. The higher the revolutions, the more powerful it would be. And after reaching the 9th revolution, it would be almost invincible, and nothing would be able to stop it. Even if one didn't have a sword in hand, it wouldn't make any difference to the 9th revolution sword chi of life massacre. However, the higher the revolutions, the harder it would be to cultivate. Furthermore, as the revolutions increased, the color of the sword chi would also change. This was all slowly figured out by Wang Chong as he tried to figure out the mental cultivation method of the Sword of Life Massacre. Currently, Wang Chong was still at the stage of the half-revolution. However, even this half-revolution sword chi was able to pierce through metal and crack jade. It was enough to pose a fatal threat to a true martial realm expert. And this was the power of So Young-sun's swordsmanship. Let's go back home and rest for a while. There are some matters that need to be settled. After finishing a steamer of soup dumplings, Wang Chong flicked his sleeves, pushed the table away and stood up. It had been more than half a month since he left the Kunwa training camp. It was time to settle the Wuxia steel weapons that he had accumulated at Tuoba Guiyuan's place. Money flowed like water. No matter how much money he had, it would never be enough. Wang Chong was well aware that there would be more areas where he would need to spend money in the future. Currently, the Wuxia steel weapons were his only source of income. Hey, do you know how to walk? Are you blind? Just as he was about to leave, a commotion could be heard from the streets outside. Wang Chong turned his head and saw a fat merchant and several burly mercenary experts pointing at a disheveled expert of around 40 years of age, his face red as he cursed at him. How dare you do this to me? Wang Chong turned his head and saw a fat merchant with several burly mercenaries pointing at a disheveled expert in his 40s. Although the person being scolded looked disheveled, Wang Chong could tell that this person was an expert with just a glance. When he walked, his feet were especially steady. His shoulders did not even sway. Furthermore, it was a completely subconscious action and not intentional. This was a habit that only those who had reached a certain level of martial arts cultivation would form. Martial arts emphasized precision and 100% accuracy. For example, Wang Chong's sword chi had to accurately hit a spider silk that was 10 feet away. As a martial arts expert, one's hands could not shake. When one's cultivation reached a certain level, this would become an instinct. This was not an issue of stability. It was just that those who had cultivated to such a level would have their limbs and body especially stable. They would be like a tree stump that was growing there, completely different from the stability of an ordinary person. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. It was easy to discern a person with a single glance. He's just asking for trouble. Wang Chong smiled and shook his head, not intending to. The capital was massive, and such conflicts occurred every day. That disheveled middle-aged man was clearly more formidable than the mercenaries of the merchant. The merchant had truly kicked a steel plate. If everything went as expected, this fellow would probably be ruthlessly beaten up. Wang Chong didn't care, nor did he have any intention of interfering. Instead, he began to walk away. However, he had only taken a few steps when something unexpected happened. Beat him up. Beat him up. What the hell? You didn't even apologize for knocking me over. There's no need to hold back. Beat him up. If he dies, I'll take responsibility. And I thought that you were formidable, so arrogant and domineering. But it turns out that you're just a weakling. Patra. The merchant's vicious voice echoed from the street. This time, not only Wang Chong, even Mayasame Ayaka was surprised. The duo turned their heads to look outside. On the wide street, the disheveled middle-aged man whom they thought to be an expert was being pummeled to the ground. Several guards of the merchant had surrounded him, and they were raining punches and kicks on him. On the other hand, the disheveled middle-aged man was just like an ordinary person, unable to put up the slightest resistance. HM? Chapter 247. Given that man's strength, the guards of the merchant weren't a match for him at all. Under normal circumstances, that plump fellow was simply asking for trouble. But the outcome was completely the opposite of what Wang Chong had expected. Interesting. For the first time, Wang Chong's curiosity was piqued. That man clearly didn't intend to retaliate, and under such circumstances, it wasn't in Wang Chong's place to interfere. Thus, he chose to watch by the side. How unlucky. Let's go. There's no need to bother with him. After venting his anger, the plump merchant stormed off with a string of curses. Right after he left, the disheveled middle-aged man slowly crawled up from the ground. Despite suffering such a vicious beating, his body was still shockingly stable. His legs and shoulders didn't move at all, as if nothing had happened at all. What a formidable cultivator! Before Wang Chong could react, Mayasame Ayaka, who was leaning against the railing by the side, narrowed her eyes in astonishment. The guards of the plump merchant weren't weak, and they had used their full strength when they struck. Even Mayasame Ayaka wouldn't have been able to withstand such a vicious beating without retaliating. Yet, this man didn't seem to be injured at all. An expert. Wang Chong's eyebrows shot up in surprise. This man's strength seemed to be far greater than he had expected. The streets were bustling with activity, and the commotion from a moment ago was like a bubble on the surface of the sea, swiftly disappearing without a trace. Other than Wang Chong, Mayasame Ayaka, and the experts of the Zhuang clan and Qi clan, no one paid much attention to the crowd. That man didn't seem to notice Wang Chong and the others either. He slowly stood up, and in that instant, Wang Chong finally caught sight of a dazed face. It's him? Wang Chong's eyelids twitched as a name flashed across his mind. Wang Chong didn't expect to see that man here. Gongzi, you know him? Mayasame Ayaka walked over from the side, her exposed eyes still staring at the back of that man, watching as he slowly disappeared into the crowd in a daze. Wang Chong nodded. There was a strange look in his eyes. Come with me. Who knows, maybe we can even find a powerful helper this time. As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Chong quickly changed his mind. After leaving Royal Jade Pavilion, Wang Chong didn't return to the Wang clan. Instead, he turned and walked in the direction the man had left. Ministry of Personnel? He's an official from the Ministry of Personnel? However, this should be a branch office of the Ministry of Personnel. These were the residences of minor officials who were copying documents from the Ministry of Appointments. With his ability, isn't this a bit of a waste of talent? Mayasame Ayaka glanced at the unassuming yaman before her, and the doubt in her eyes deepened. Even though Mayasame Ayaka had only been in the Central Plains for a short period of time, she had lived under the sun of heaven's feet for quite some time. The royal court of the Tang dynasty was divided into 6 departments: rights, officials, works, military, punishment, and agriculture. Other than these 6 departments, there were dozens of smaller yamans of varying sizes in the capital, and they dealt with different problems based on their different functions. Judging from the shabby appearance of the yaman before him, it was likely to be one of the most inconspicuous yamans in the Ministry of Personnel. Throughout the year, it was rare to see any influential figures here. Most of the time, they had to deal with documents, and it was one of the most insignificant officials in the Ministry of Personnel. The requirements for such work weren't high, and ordinary people would suffice. Given that person's strength, it was truly a waste for him to take on such an insignificant job. Wang Chong didn't say a word. Instead, he stared at the dusty plaque above the door. If Wang Chong's initial guess was only a guess, at this moment, Wang Chong was certain of that person's identity. Li Man, the few of you wait outside. I'll go in for a moment. After saying these words to the experts of the Zhuang clan and Qi clan, Wang Chong quickly walked into the yamen. There were strict rules in the government, and even a small yamen like this wasn't a place that ordinary people could enter. Wang Chong flashed the token given to him by the King of Song, and he walked in unimpeded. What are you doing here? Why are you only here at this hour? Do you think that you're still in the Ministry of Punishments? Do you think that you're still that young genius? Back then, you couldn't even catch the culprits who assassinated the officials of the royal court, and now, you're dragging others down just to copy some documents. What else can you do? You're completely useless. Let me tell you, if you don't finish copying these documents today, don't even think about going back. All you think about is eating and waiting for death. While he was still in the courtyard, before he could step into the main hall, Wang Chong heard a coarse voice cursing loudly. The words were so harsh that even Wang Chong couldn't stand it anymore. Enough. Don't say any more. Wang Chong frowned and stepped into the literature study of the yamen. As far as the eye could see, a dozen or so civil servants were copying documents inside, and the documents on the table were piled up like a mountain. Diagonally across from the door, a civil servant who looked like a minor leader of the yamen was pointing at the middle-aged man Wang Chong had seen in Royal Jade Restaurant, and he was cursing loudly. The disheveled middle-aged man lowered his head and didn't talk back. Thinking of this man's reputation more than a decade ago, Wang Chong couldn't help but feel a deep sense of sympathy. Who would have thought that this man would end up in such a state 10 years ago? Who are you? The leader of the civil servants was furious. When he saw Wang Chong, who he didn't know, walk in, he immediately flew into a rage. Don't you know that important officials of the royal court strictly forbid outsiders from entering? Besides, what does it have to do with you that I'm teaching a lesson to someone from the yamen? Swish, swish, swish. Everyone else in the hall looked over as well. There were usually only 20 or 30 people in the yamen, and they were all familiar faces. People like Wang Chong would stand out the moment he entered, so it was hard not to notice him. Wang Chong couldn't be bothered to say anything more. He directly took out a shiny golden token. Seeing this golden waist token, the scholar leader's expression changed in an instant. This was just an inconspicuous yamen under the Ministry of Personnel, and his rank was very low. But he had more or less heard of and seen the various sects under the emperor's jurisdiction. The token in Wang Chong's hand was clearly a prince token. Furthermore, from the word song on it, It was the token of the king of Song, Xianxia, who was famous in the imperial court of the Tang dynasty and had an extraordinary status. Although they were under the emperor's jurisdiction, they had stayed in this insignificant yamen. It was rare for them to see an influential official in the imperial court, much less a prince. "Young master, you work for His Highness the King of Song." The civil servant walked around the table and the documents. His expression instantly changed. He bowed, cupped his hands, and was extremely enthusiastic. "I didn't know you were coming, young master. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you. Does His Highness the King of Song have any orders for me?" "You don't have to worry about that. I'm here for him." As Wang Chong spoke, he suddenly pointed a finger at the disheveled middle-aged man behind the documents. This greatly surprised everyone. The disheveled middle-aged man lowered his head. He didn't dare to be hit or scolded. He just accepted it and didn't resist at all. But when he heard a strange young man coming to look for him, he couldn't help but raise his head. For the first time, a surprised look appeared in his eyes. The civil servant leader was surprised. He didn't expect that Wang Chong would come to look for the most insignificant, looked down upon, and had the least presence in the yamen. "Young master, are you sure it's him? How could it be?" Are you the one who knows who I'm looking for instead of me?" Wang Chong said coldly. "Young master, please don't misunderstand. That's not what I mean." The civil servant hurriedly waved his hands awkwardly. Even though he was perplexed, his reaction wasn't slow. Regardless of what Wang Chong was looking for or who he was looking for, it had nothing to do with him. On the other hand, His Highness the King of Song was of noble standing. The disparity between the two of them was like the difference between clouds and mud, and he wasn't someone whom mere civil servants like them could afford to offend. All right. Let's rest for today. Everyone hurry up and leave. Ma Yinlong, I'll leave this Gongzi to you. Treat him well, and if anything were to happen, I'll hold you accountable." The civil servant leader knew that he had shouted too loudly earlier, and this Gongzi probably didn't like him. Thus, he hurriedly led everyone out of the room, leaving only Wang Chong and Ma Yinlong behind. "It's really him." The doubts in Wang Chong's mind cleared up. If Wang Chong had not seen it with his own eyes, he would have found it very difficult to believe that the two of them were the same person. That genius of the Bureau of Punishments who had received the limelight from 10-some years ago, and this middle-aged man who would not retaliate when hit or scolded. The Gogrian assassination back then didn't just kill a single person. "Who are you? I don't think that I know you." Now that only he and the unfamiliar young man were left in the room, Ma Yinlong finally lifted his head and stared at Wang Chong coldly. His attitude was completely different from when he was with the civil servant leader and the plump merchant by the street. Ever since that incident a decade ago, he didn't want to have anything to do with those influential figures. You don't know me. But I do." Wang Chong chuckled and revealed his intentions. "I'm here to ask for your help. I need your help to capture someone." "I think you're looking for the wrong person. I'm just a civil servant who transcribes documents. If you want my help to capture someone, you should head to the Bureau of Punishments, Bureau of Military Personnel, or somewhere else. I'm afraid that I won't be able to help you much, so I'll have to ask you to leave." Ma Yinlong sneered coldly without a pleasant expression on his face. Don't be in such a hurry to reject me. It won't be too late for you to wait for me to finish my words. Our operation this time has something to do with the Gogurians." Wang Chong said. Ma Yinlong's eyebrows twitched, as though he was noticing Wang Chong for the first time. But very quickly, this trace of expression flashed by, as if nothing had happened. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not interested in the Gogurians. The door is right there, so you should leave." Ma Yinlong grabbed a bag of documents, lowered his head, and began to transcribe them, clearly intending to send Wang Chong off. Even King Sojurim isn't interested?" Wang Chong chuckled. "Ponglong." As soon as Wang Chong said those words, Ma Yinlong's face immediately warped in shock. Kacha, the brush in his hand snapped into two. Hong Long. At the same time, the air in the room suddenly changed. As though a raging storm, a powerful and fearsome aura burst forth from Ma Yinlong's body. This aura was so powerful that even Wang Chong, who had advanced his cultivation to Origin Energy Tier 9, paled in comparison to it, as if he was an insignificant speck of dust. In that instant, Wang Chong felt as though he was standing in the most violent ocean in the world, and a 1,000-chi-tall wave was crashing down on him, threatening to crush him into smithereens. To think that this fellow is already so fearsome. Feeling the immense pressure weighing down on him, Wang Chong's face warped in astonishment. More than a decade had passed, but not only did this person's cultivation not deteriorate, he had even grown stronger than what the rumors said. Even the Goguryeo true martial realm experts whom he had met before seemed as insignificant as ants before him. Chapter 248. Fong of the White Tiger. A name flashed across Wang Chong's mind. More than a decade ago, Ma Yinlong would have been the most promising genius in the Bureau of Punishments. Back then, he was known as the most outstanding genius of the younger generation in the Bureau of Military Personnel. Although he had lived a destitute life for more than 10 years and had been banished to the government office of the Ministry of Personnel to become a lowly scribe that no one looked up to, he had never given up on his strength. Profound martial realm. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. Ma Yinlong's cultivation had already surpassed the true martial realm, reaching profound martial realm at the very least. Gongzi, be careful. Just as Ma Yinlong was deep in thought, a feminine voice suddenly sounded. As though sensing Ma Yinlong's danger, a black shadow flashed, and a petite figure leaped down from the roof, heading straight for him. This is bad. Wang Chong was astonished. Even though Ma Yinlong's aura was threatening, there wasn't much killing intent emanating from him. This was something Wang Chong was well aware of, but Mayasame Ayaka was clearly unaware of. As soon as Wang Chong entered the yamen, Mayasame Ayaka leaped onto the roof. The moment Ma Yinlong made a move, Mayasame Ayaka instinctively thought that he was going to attack Wang Chong, so she immediately retaliated. Stop! Wang Chong was astonished. He knew that Mayasame Ayaka wasn't a match for the Fong of the White Tiger of the Bureau of Punishments. However, Mayasame Ayaka's movements were simply too swift, and she had already prepared herself for it. Even Wang Chong wasn't able to stop her in time. Clang! In a flash of light, Mayasame Ayaka was already above Ma Yinlong's head. Her 3-chi long sword gleamed coldly as it slashed down toward Ma Yinlong's head. Seated behind his desk, a cold glint flashed across Ma Yinlong's eyes as he stared at the descending Mayasame Ayaka. In the next instant, boom! The world trembled, and a surge of black stellar energy gushed out from Ma Yinlong's body. The black stellar energy caused the air to tremble, and the sound of metal clashing echoed. As though a gust of autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, Xianxia's stellar energy struck Mayasame Ayaka in midair. Mayasame Ayaka didn't even have the time to dodge. The origin energy around her dissipated, and she was sent flying like a broken kite. Mr. Ma, stop! Panicked, Wang Chong leaped forward to catch the falling Mayasame Ringung. At the same time, he hurriedly called out to stop Ma Yinlong. Who in the world are you people? Who told you to come here? I haven't interfered with the affairs of the Ministry of Justice for more than 10 years. It has been more than a decade since I interfered? Who told you I was here? Ma Yinlong raised his head from behind the table, and in a stark contrast to his previous dejected expression, Ma Yinlong's eyes were gleaming with sharpness. Like a ferocious white tiger, he seemed to be able to peer into the depths of one's soul. Anyone who faced such a gaze would subconsciously avoid it, as though a needle had been pricked by it. The atmosphere was tense, and Wang Chong could sense the killing intent in Ma Yinlong's heart. If he didn't give the other party a satisfactory answer, this Fong of the White Tiger of the Bureau of Punishments would probably turn his back on him. Mayasame Ayaka, how are you? Are you injured? Ignoring Ma Yinlong, Wang Chong hugged Mayasame Ayaka's body tightly as he asked worriedly. I'm fine. The black veil covering Mayasame Ayaka's face had already been torn apart, revealing her pale face. Her origin energy seemed to have dissipated, leaving her in a weakened state. But her cheeks were red as if they were on fire, tinged with shyness. When she saw Wang Chong's gaze, she subconsciously averted her eyes. Wang Chong was taken aback for a moment before realizing that the both of them were in an intimate position. This was the first time they had been in such an intimate position ever since they met. Feeling a little awkward, Wang Chong hurriedly put Mayasame Ayaka down and subconsciously turned his head away, not saying a single word. I won't go easy on you all the time. If you can't give me a satisfactory answer, I won't let you off so lightly the next time. Ma Yinlong's cold voice sounded in Wang Chong's ears, and only then did he recover from his daze. Mr. Ma, I've already said it. I'm here for King Sojurim. Elder might be hiding well, but you should know that given our standing, it isn't too difficult for us to find out where he is. Wang Chong said with a hint of arrogance in his voice. As a scion of a prestigious clan, it wasn't too difficult for them to investigate a person. Regardless of where Ma Yinlong was hiding, as long as he was in the vicinity of the capital, Wang Chong would surely be able to find him. This was the confidence of the nobles. Ma Yinlong was taken aback for a moment before his complexion finally softened. Elder, Goguryeo has always been a threat to the empire, and I believe that you know this better than anyone else. King Sojurim is the head of Goguryeo's spies in the Tang dynasty, and you were one of the people in charge of pursuing King Sojurim back then. You've studied him for more than a decade now, and I believe that you know him better than anyone else. Thus, I hope that you can help me capture King Sojurim. Wang Chong said grimly. In truth, Wang Chong had already made up his mind on how to deal with the Goguryans. With the help of the King of Song and the army of the royal court, dealing with the Goguryans would be a walk in the park. However, as the saying went, weeds will grow again if the roots aren't removed. To the massive empire of Goguryeo, the deaths of a bunch of Goguryan warriors meant nothing. As long as they were willing, they could send a steady stream of soldiers over. They could continue to carry out assassinations and sabotage. If Wang Chong wanted to deal a heavy blow to the Goguryans, he had to find the head of the Goguryan assassins in the Central Plains, King Sojurim. Only by killing the head of the Goguryan spy would he be able to stop the Goguryans from assassinating the important officials of the Tang dynasty. At the very least, without this person, the influence of the Goguryan Empire in the Tang dynasty would be greatly weakened. However, King Sojurim was as cunning as a fox. Even though Wang Chong was confident that he could eliminate the experts he had mobilized from the Goguryan Empire, he wasn't confident that he could capture him. This was also the reason why Wang Chong came to look for Ma Yinlong. More than a decade ago, when King Sojurim assassinated the important officials of the royal court, as the youngest genius in the Bureau of Punishments, Ma Yinlong was one of the people in charge of this case. He pursued King Sojurim for more than a decade, and in the end he was stripped of his scholarly title by the Bureau of Punishments due to this case. He was banished to the Bureau of Personnel and became a lowly scribe. But in terms of understanding of King Sojurim, Wang Chong knew that no one could surpass him. This wasn't just because of his understanding of King Sojurim. More importantly, back then, among the important officials of the royal court that King Sojurim assassinated was Ma Yinlong's teacher and the woman he loved the most. More than a decade ago, Ma Yinlong wasn't as old as he was now. He was still in his 20s, enjoying the glory of his youth. On the other hand, his teacher, Lord Zhang Shoshan of the Bureau of Punishments, had a young and beautiful daughter who was betrothed to him. When the Goguryans carried out night assassinations, they would leave no one alive. Among those who died was the beloved daughter of Lord Zhang of the Bureau of Punishments. This matter was extremely secretive, and not many people knew of it back then. However, Wang Chong had heard of it. In terms of hatred for the Goguryans and King Sojurim, there was no one who could match up to the Fang of the White Tiger of the Bureau of Punishments. The reason why King Sojurim remained peaceful for more than a decade and didn't launch any large-scale assassinations or sabotage was largely due to the existence of the Fang of the White Tiger. But it was a pity that despite Ma Yinlong's understanding of King Sojurim, he was still unable to capture the latter in his previous life. And when King Sojurim successfully launched his second assassination attempt, Ma Yinlong was finally remembered once more. Suffering such a blow, Ma Yinlong finally broke down. The last news Wang Chong heard was that not long after King Sojurim successfully escaped back to the Goguryeo Empire, Ma Yinlong moved to the burial ground of his teacher, Zhang Shoshan, and built a straw hut there. But a few years later, he passed away from depression. When Wang Chong heard of this matter back then, he couldn't help but feel regretful. Ma Yinlong was a talented person, and he was a man of steel. Even though he failed to capture King Sozhiram, his existence still served as a huge deterrent to the latter. A figure like him deserved a chance to exact vengeance. This was also the reason why Wang Chong changed his mind when he saw the matter at the Royal Jade Pavilion. While he was helping the royal court at the same time, he was also helping himself. It's useless. You found the wrong person. I can't help you in dealing with King Sozhiram. You should look for someone else instead. Unaware of Wang Chong's intentions, Ma Yinlong rejected the other party's request without any hesitation. Mr. Ma, if I were to say that King Sozhiram intends to carry out another assassination attempt and sabotage just like the one from a decade ago, but this time around he intends to kill even more officials of the royal court, would you still stand by idly? Wang Chong sneered coldly. What did you say? Hearing Wang Chong's words, Ma Yinlong's face warped in shock. He abruptly raised his head and glared at Wang Chong with reddened eyes. Mr. Ma, I'm here to inform you that King Sozhiram is going to make another move. Wang Chong said grimly. Boom. There was a flash of light, and before Mayasame Ayaka could see clearly, a figure had already appeared before her. In an instant, Ma Yinlong appeared before the duo with killing intent blazing in his eyes. If the two of you dare to lie to me, I'll make sure that you die without a proper burial ground. Ma Yinlong's face was incomparably dark, and even Mayasame Ayaka felt a chill running down her spine. However, upon seeing this sight, Wang Chong chuckled. His judgment was right. Even though he had been in low spirits for more than a decade, the former head of the Bureau of Punishments had never forgotten about King Sozhiram. Mr. Ma, you'll know the truth with a single look. Chapter 249. Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong swiftly revealed the entire matter. King Sozhiram's movements were secretive, and it wasn't easy to track him down. It was impossible for King Sozhiram to be absent from such a huge matter like mobilizing troops to assassinate an important official of the Central Plains. This was their final chance to deal with King Sozhiram. Wang Chong believed that given Ma Yinlong's intelligence, it was impossible for him not to understand this point. Thus, Wang Chong patiently stood there with Mayasame Ayaka, awaiting Ma Yinlong's reply. The study room was silent. Ma Yinlong stood there motionlessly with his head lowered. No one could tell what he was thinking about. Since he didn't move, Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka also stood there motionlessly. Even though he was confident in his plan, it was ultimately his own thoughts. No one knew what Ma Yinlong was thinking at this moment. Honestly speaking, Wang Chong wasn't too confident either. After all, Ma Yinlong didn't seem like an easy person to convince. How do you want me to help you? After an unknown period of time, Ma Yinlong finally lifted his head. Hearing those words, a smile finally appeared on Wang Chong's face. In the deep night sky, a crescent moon hung high in the sky of a remote courtyard. Wang Chong noticed that the first base was brightly lit, and Goguryeo warriors were standing guard in the surroundings. There was a restless atmosphere in the air. In just a short period of time, more than a dozen Goguryeo warriors, including a true martial realm expert, had vanished from the face of the earth without a trace. It was hard to tell if they had died or gone somewhere else. Such a situation had never happened before, at least not on such a large scale. As the person in charge of the first base, it wasn't hard to imagine how frustrated Li Jiuhuan was. How is it? Are you still unable to find their whereabouts? Under the dim light, Li Jiuhuan asked with his hands behind his back. Even though he was only in his 30s, his resolute face made him look like an accomplished leader. Lord, there's nothing. Our men have searched the entire capital of the Tang dynasty. They had searched everywhere, but there was no news of them at all. In this subordinate's opinion, the odds are against them. On the ground, a Goguryeo assassin with his hair draped over his shoulders and his face covered with a cloth knelt on the ground. His expression was very pious. The hierarchy in Goguryeo was extremely strict. Outside of the empire, all of the assassins and shadow guards had to obey the orders of the local leader. Are there no movements from the public houses of the Tang dynasty? Is it possible that he had a conflict with the forces of some nobles or dukes of the Tang dynasty? Li Jiahuan said. When the news came out, his first reaction was to wonder if these fellows had a conflict with some hedonistic son of the house of Duke of the Tang dynasty and were eliminated by these hedonistic sons using the power of their families. It wasn't as if such a thing had never happened before. In a place like the capital of the Tang dynasty, there were nobles everywhere. If one were to stay in such a place for too long, there was no guarantee that one wouldn't offend one or two scions of nobility. While not all of these scions were like that, there were bound to be some vicious men in every clan who knew that the laws of the Tang dynasty forbade murder. Thus, they didn't hold back at all. Sometimes, even the corpses couldn't be found. It was truly a case of destroying the corpses, leaving not even the slightest trace behind. Putting aside the fact that it was the Bureau of Punishments, even the victims, like them, didn't know who did it. Thus, Li Jiahuan's first thought was that these assassins might have offended an extremely formidable fellow. They might have been killed outside. The Tang people had never held back when it came to killing Goguryans. That's a possibility. However, the possibility is slim. Too many people have died this time. Other than us, there are casualties in the second and third bases. We have a feeling that someone is targeting us. Of course, there are other reasons as well. The masked assassin knelt on the ground and reported respectfully. The Goguryans had a specialist in the capital of the Tang dynasty in charge of investigating such matters. He was only announcing the results objectively. Frowning, Li Jiahuan fell silent. More than a dozen Goguryan experts had died silently in the city. It wouldn't have mattered if it was any other time, but it just had to be at such a crucial moment. Li Jiahuan wasn't afraid that someone was targeting them, but he was afraid that it would affect the Lord's plan. The only fortunate thing was that all of the missing experts had gone missing in the city. Even if someone was targeting the Goguryans, they shouldn't have discovered the existence of their bases. This was a blessing amidst the misfortune. Of course, this was also thanks to that Lord. After all of the bases were built by that Lord. Even the Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments of the Tang dynasty couldn't find the existence of their bases. Everyone had unreservedly trusted and respected the person above them. What did the Lord say? Li Jiahuan suddenly asked. There's no need to bother with the Lord's words for now. Sacrifices are bound to be made in order to achieve great things. At this moment, even if we have to sacrifice all of our bases, we mustn't make any big moves lest we attract the attention of the Tang dynasty. These are the Lord's words. The masked assassin kneeled on the floor and reported respectfully. I understand. Li Jiahuan was taken aback, and a dazed expression appeared on his face. But soon he recovered and said, Please tell the Lord that I know what I should do. More than half of the warriors in the kingdom have arrived, and it won't be long before a major event shakes the Tang dynasty. Lord, why don't you wait a little longer? Lord Sozhiram's foresight is truly incredible. If we can deal a heavy blow to the Tang dynasty, our warriors will have died a worthy death. Everyone in the Central Plains should be prepared to face death. What do you say, Lord? The masked assassin kneeling on the ground said. Li Jiahuan didn't say anything and just nodded. Amidst the silence, a bone-chilling cry suddenly sounded from the sky. In the blink of an eye, a pitch-black raven descended from the sky and flew into the room. Upon seeing the pitch-black raven, the duo in the room immediately revealed a solemn and respectful expression. Goguryo worshipped the three-legged crow, so they didn't rely on ordinary birds to deliver messages. Instead, they relied on pitch-black ravens. Lord has sent word that he's gathering the experts of the various bases. It seems like the operation is about to begin. You should return to report on the orders. Li Jiahuan's expression changed, and he waved his hands grimly. The masked assassin replied. With a flip of his body, he leaped out of the window and disappeared. Not too long after the masked assassin left, Li Jiahuan also blew out the candles, and the room was soon plunged into darkness. At the same time, from the southeast corner of the courtyard, a figure flew out, and with a few swoosh swoosh swoosh, he swiftly headed in the direction of the masked assassin. Due to his incredible speed, no one saw this sight. After an unknown period of time, a figure slowly peeked out from the corner of the room. After waiting for so long, there's finally news of King Sozhiram. Wang Chong thought. Glancing at the dimly lit sky, Wang Chong quickly crouched down and made his way out. Under the dim moonlight, one could see that Wang Chong's body was covered in a layer of grass. It was made from a layer of vines and grass. When Wang Chong was crouching on the ground, coupled with the tortoise breathing art, it was nearly impossible to notice him. Wang Chong had applied the disguise art from the other world to this world, and it seemed to be rather effective. As Wang Chong made his way out of the courtyard, Mayasame Ayaka quickly walked up to him. "Gongzi, how is it?" Mayasame Ayaka asked. The Goguryeo base wasn't as easy to infiltrate as it seemed on the surface. Mayasame Ayaka was an assassin as well, but she didn't dare to approach the window of the Goguryeo residence. This time, it was Wang Chong and Ma Yinlong who went together. "Hee, Ma Yinlong has already gone after them," Wang Chong said. This was the first time he was working together with the wolf of the white tiger. Ma Yinlong was a profound martial realm expert, and it wasn't a problem for him to track down a Goguryeo assassin. Thus, Wang Chong wasn't worried at all. Ma Yinlong left swiftly and returned swiftly as well. In just a few moments, he appeared before the group once more. "Come over, I'll show you something." After saying those words, Ma Yinlong turned around and left. A moment later, Wang Chong, Mayasame Ayaka, and the Zhuang clan and Qi clan cavalrymen and guards finally saw what Ma Yinlong wanted them to see. Those fellows actually broke through the walls of the capital. The group of people looked at the hole in front of them, and their expressions turned ugly. Even though Wang Chong wasn't as astounded as the experts of the Zhuang clan and Qi clan, he still couldn't help but frown upon seeing the hole. The capital was the residence of the emperor, and it was the capital of several dynasties. Through the generations of reinforcement, the underground was extremely sturdy. This was especially so for the areas near the palace walls. Beneath the ground were large granite and basalt rocks. These rocks were incomparably dense, and even swords wouldn't be able to cut through them. On the other hand, the walls constructed by the emperor were different from those constructed by ordinary people. Surrounding the walls were boulders several hundred zhang thick, and the area of the walls was massive. On top of that, there would be several imperial army members patrolling the area daily. To open a tunnel here without being discovered by the imperial army was extremely difficult. It would take a lot of time and effort, and it would definitely be a huge undertaking. From a certain perspective, this was an impossible feat, yet the Goguryens actually managed to open up a secret tunnel here, connecting the inside and outside of the capital. In other words, the walls of the Tang dynasty were no longer restricted to them. They could enter and exit the walls at any time, and they could deploy their experts. Mayasame Ayaka might not have felt anything from this, but for Wang Chong, Ma Yinlong, and the cavalrymen and guards of the Zhuang clan and Qi clan, it was a completely different feeling. Yet, there was a tunnel in the hands of outsiders in the capital, allowing them to enter and leave as they pleased. No one from the central plains of the Tang dynasty would feel good about this. Before this, Wang Chong had heard of the reputation of King Sozhiram. However, looking at the secret tunnel beneath his feet, Wang Chong finally had a deeper understanding of the legendary spy king of the Goguryens. Chapter 250. Did you find out where he went? Wang Chong lifted his head to look at Ma Yinlong and asked. I didn't chase after him. The forest is lush, making it easy for him to be discovered. Thus, the moment he entered the forest, he retreated. If I'm not mistaken, the place where the Goguryeo elites are gathered should be outside the city. Knowing that Wang Chong was referring to the assassin, Ma Yinlong said. Outside the city? Wang Chong's eyebrows twitched. He slowly turned his head around and gazed at the mountain peak beyond the city walls, deep in thought. After looking around, he realized that the largest gathering point of the Goguryens was located outside the city. Although it was a little strange, it made sense when he thought about it. Firstly, they were connected by a secret passageway, allowing them to enter the city even at night. Secondly, even if their tracks were to be exposed, it would be convenient for them to escape. Do you have any thoughts on what to do next? Wang Chong looked at Ma Yinlong. The current Ma Yinlong was completely different from the disheveled middle-aged man he had seen at the Royal Jade Pavilion. His eyes were burning with an intense fighting spirit. Ma Yinlong was the one who had released the assassin. Given Wang Chong's strength, he could have easily captured the assassin and interrogated him to reveal their location. However, Ma Yinlong didn't do so. Wang Chong believed that he had his reasons for doing so. As the person who had the deepest understanding of the Goguryans and King Sozhiram, Wang Chong believed that Ma Yinlong could be trusted in this aspect. The Goguryan assassins are all death warriors, and it's impossible to extract any useful information from them. If we were to capture him, we might end up alerting them instead. Ma Yinlong knew what Wang Chong was thinking, and with just a few words, he explained the reason why he released the assassin. As for what happens next, after so many years, it's about time for them to appear. It's about time for this matter to come to an end. At the end of his words, Ma Yinlong sighed deeply, and a complicated look surfaced in his eyes. Ma Yinlong applied for 3 days of leave. During these 3 days, he didn't mention where he would be going, and Wang Chong didn't ask either. From the Fong of the White Tiger, who was favored by the heavens, to the petty scribe of the government office of the Ministry of Personnel, everyone had their own story behind them, and they did not dig into it. However, 3 days later, Wang Chong saw Ma Yinlong's results in the Royal Jade Pavilion. In front of Wang Chong, 3 middle-aged men in shabby clothes stood in a row in front of Wang Chong. Of the 3, one was a seasoned bird trader with an exceptionally large eagle perched on his shoulder. The other was a one-armed drunkard with an empty left sleeve. Even from a distance away, Wang Chong could smell the stench of alcohol on him. There was another one who looked particularly ferocious. It was obvious that he was the kind of mercenary expert who would sacrifice his life for anyone who gave him money. Although the 3 of them looked a little different, they were not as simple as they seemed on the surface. But that was all. There were at least a few thousand of such people in the capital. In the past, Wang Chong wouldn't have even spared these 3 a glance, wouldn't have paid them much attention. However, Ma Yinlong had spent 3 days to introduce them to him, so Wang Chong had no choice but to take a closer look at them. These people. Are they from the Bureau of Punishments back then? Wang Chong looked at the trio and asked. He wasn't a fool either. Wang Chong could sense the same emotions as Ma Yinlong from these people. If he wasn't mistaken, they were also those who were implicated in the case back then. That's not entirely true. Solitary Wolf is from the Bureau of Military Personnel. Ma Yinlong pointed to the ferocious-looking mercenary expert who valued money more than his life, and said grimly, back then, many officials and officials of the 6 bureaus were assassinated, and it caused a huge uproar. The few of us were the ones in charge of that case. If the case couldn't be solved, everyone would be implicated. I was demoted to the Bureau of Personnel to copy books, the Eagle fired me from my post, and I spent a few years in jail. When I was released, I had to disguise myself as a bird dealer. Even though Steel Arms wasn't imprisoned, he was crippled by the Goguryans when he was investigating the case back then, and he spent his days getting drunk in taverns. As for Solitary Wolf, he concealed his identity and became a mercenary expert, working for anyone who paid him. Over the years, those brothers of mine from back then have either died or been severely injured. These are the only ones who managed to survive the assassination of the Goguryans. Ma Yinlong spoke of the past with deep sorrow. The eyes of the Eagle, Steel Arms, and Solitary Wolf also reddened. Even though Wang Chong hadn't been involved in the case back then, and he didn't know what they had gone through, he could sense it from Ma Yinlong's voice. More than a decade ago, when King Sozhiram assassinated influential officials of the royal court, they were still ambitious youths in the Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments, and they had bright futures ahead of them. But because of this case, the brothers who had investigated the case with them back then had either died or been severely injured. They had fallen from the lofty position of young heroes into the dust, falling to their current state. It was due to their sorrow that the reputation of King Sozhiram rose, becoming the legend he was today. The others in the room seemed to have noticed this as well, and the atmosphere turned heavy. Let's not talk about this anymore. Perhaps this is fate. After 15 years, we still can't escape from it. Since this matter started with us, let it end with us. The eagle, steel arms, solitary wolf, and this is Wang Gongzi. His grandfather is Duke Jiao of the Tang dynasty. The trio had only appeared here out of respect for Ma Yinlong, but upon hearing that Wang Cheng's grandfather was Duke Jiao, their expressions changed. Their gazes toward Wang Cheng were filled with respect. Wang Gongzi. The three prideful men lowered their heads at the same time and gave a deep bow. Wang Gongzi, since you're Duke Jiao's grandson, you can't be considered as an outsider. Back then, due to the assassination of an important official of the royal court, we should have been executed. It was your grandfather and a group of officials who stood up to remonstrate with the Holy Emperor that we managed to survive. If Gongzi has any instructions for us in the future, feel free to speak. Steel Arms said, and the other two nodded in agreement. Hearing those words, Wang Cheng's eyebrows shot up in astonishment. This was the first time he had heard of such a matter. Ever since he was young, including his previous life, he had never heard of it from his grandfather. If not for the trio mentioning it, he would have been completely oblivious to it. But thinking about it, such a huge case must have attracted a lot of attention. Given his grandfather's identity back then, it was only natural that he would be on the list of people paying attention to it. If Ma Yinlong and the others were to be executed by the royal court, given his grandfather's temper, there was no way he would stand by idly. Wang Gongzi, even though they look like they are in dire straits, lacking an arm, drunk, and fighting with their lives, they are still top-notch experts. In terms of their understanding of the Goguryans and their martial arts, there is probably no one in the capital who can surpass them. Ma Yinlong introduced by the side. Even though Steel Arms only has a single arm, his remaining right arm is extremely formidable. The sword in his right hand is ferocious and incomparably sharp. Even I might not be able to withstand a blow from his right hand. Solitary Wolf loves to fight with his life on the line. Even the Goguryan assassins would have to retreat before him. His strength isn't something that the guards in the king residence can compare to. Back then, Solitary Wolf was already an expert in the Bureau of Military Personnel, and now he's even more formidable. If Gongzi keeps him by your side, he will be the best shield you can offer. Even if you were to encounter an assassination attempt from the Goguryan, Gongzi's life wouldn't be in danger. As long as Solitary Eye is still breathing, he won't allow anyone to approach Gongzi. Ma Yinlong's words carried a deeper meaning, and even without any explanation, Wang Cheng could tell that Ma Yinlong was looking down on the people around him, thinking that they wouldn't be able to guarantee his safety. Even so, Wang Cheng couldn't find any words to refute Ma Yinlong's words. Regardless of whether it was Mayasame Ayaka or the experts of the Zhuang clan and Qi clan, none of them were capable of standing up to Ma Yinlong and the others. Putting everything aside, these people had been cultivating for much longer than Mayasame Ayaka and the others. After all, they were still young. However, I really couldn't tell. That Steel Arms reeks of alcohol, but to think that he's actually a formidable expert. Wang Cheng thought. He had a rough understanding of Ma Yinlong's means, and from what Ma Yinlong had said, the formidable Steel Arms was able to wield a sword with his right hand. Of the three, Ma Yinlong had already introduced two of them, so there was only one left. Wang Cheng turned to look at the last person, the eagle. As for the eagle, his martial arts aren't too high. However, he has some unique skills, and this is what we need right now. This is also the reason why I brought him here. As for the last person, the eagle, Ma Yinlong didn't try to sell his connections. The eagle is the most formidable eagle tamer. Back then, he was publicly acknowledged as the #1 in the capital. This is also the reason why he was transferred here to assist in the investigation of the Goguryans. The eagles he trained are extremely intelligent, and they are skilled in tracking, scouting, and hunting. Back then, the person whom the Goguryans wanted to get rid of the most wasn't me or One-Eyed, but the eagle. Even in the past few years, the Goguryans have been trying to find news of him. Fortunately, other than us, no one else has seen him. I believe Gongzi has noticed that the Gogurians prefer to use specially trained ravens to transmit information. These ravens are extremely fast, and their talons are extremely powerful. Even Hai Dongxing is unable to catch them. However, the eagles trained by Old Eagle could successfully prey on them and track them without being discovered. If we wish to find the Gogurians' base outside the city without being discovered, we will need to use the abilities of the eagle. Wang Chong widened his eyes in shock as he stared at the eagle, who was dressed up as a bird merchant. At this moment, he finally understood why Ma Yinlong was so insistent on bringing him here. If he had the abilities of the eagle, the Gogurians wouldn't be able to hide from the eagle. Furthermore, no matter what kind of information they were sending, it would be captured in advance. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.